how do they think people survived? Is there any speculation? And where did we survive? Like, where was the good spot?
I think caves. I think a lot of it would have been underground. And I think they may have even known. Like, I think there's some evidence to suggest that some of these, like Derinkuyu in Turkey, in the Cappadocia region could host tens of thousands of people. There's massive labyrinths all over Egypt, beneath Saqqara. There's miles and miles of tunnels and catacombs. I've been down into a bunch of them. And even when you look at sites like Göbekli Tepe, there's been some interpretations of the artwork on that site that seems to indicate a cosmic calendar. Like, they're almost marking that date. We know that the ancients were watching the sky. Like, they were concerned about it. And comet mythology is a fantastic topic for Randall. I talked with him about this quite a bit. The comet, it wasn't seen as a pretty thing in the sky. Like, it was the harbinger of doom. Like, comets and all those types of things were just seen as really bad things that they were preparing for. But I think we survived partly because of diversity and being spread out all around the world. There were parts of the world that weren't as badly touched, like Australia, for example. That whole continent wasn't as badly affected as, say, the Northern Hemisphere was from the Younger Dryas. But also caves, 100% caves and sheltered caves. Those big cities that they could take tens of thousands of people underground.
Yeah. Something wild that it's popped back up in my head, speaking of flooding and this 11,000-year time frame, going back to the Richat Structure, there's a study that I came across that ties into the video that we were just mentioning, that off the west coast of Sahara, Africa, right in front of the Richat Structure, there's an underwater seafloor slide dated at approximately 11,000 years ago. And keyword approximately, that the very symbol is in there. So they're not entirely sure the date, but in that time frame. And this sediment looks like in the shape that it was blasted from a flood of water coming out of the Sahara, just based on the nature of the shape of it, that's more than 200 miles wide and maybe 130, 140, 150 miles from north to south. And it's layered sediment that is 2,000 meters, more than a mile deep, and it's layered. This right here. So, one, it's corresponding evidence that massive force of water may have blown out of the Sahara. And the one reason why this is so significant is, besides the fact that it indicates a possible flood of 11,000 years ago, but if there was any remnants of Atlantis, if the Richat Structure was the location, this is where you would want to go looking. I mean, it's, again, layered sediment. Thank you. Yeah, sediment. More than a mile deep.
Wow.
Yeah. That's just to put this into perspective, from going from east to west, based on this 200-mile, the widest point of the Florida Peninsula is 150 miles. Like, this is more than 50 miles wider than the entire state of Florida panhandle. I don't know. I mean, it's the same distance from New York City to where'd I have that in? D.C. Yeah. So, like, this is literally evidence of a catastrophic flood. That's more than just a seafloor slide. Something bulldozed. And when you look at these fluvial erosions, to anyone that's looking at this right now, signature traits of catastrophic water erosion. And it looks exactly like they teach in school when it comes to water striations, whether it's from glaciers or from water. These are signature traits of water. This is not wind. Yeah. And the fact that all these areas of white blemishes, say in the Richat, are confirmed salt. There's numerous studies. I mean, for example, there is a treatise from 1851 from England and Mauritania that lists a few things. That talks about, one, that abundance of gold. It lists that, let me back up. Salt, they used to export gold out of Mauritania to Europe, and that's one of the locations. And also, gold, it said that prior to the gold rush of North America back in the 1800s, Europe got most of their gold supply from Mauritania as well. Wow. Which is an interesting point, because if that was the site of Atlantis, which was said to be so rich in gold, what an interesting similarity.
Go back to that image again, please, Jamie. What's really fascinating too is the description of Atlantis, of having that opening to the south, and then you see this clear pathway to the south.
Yep.
Everything lines up. The shape of Atlantis, like the concentric circles, the amount of them. Earth to water, the way the representation of it as described,
right.
The mountains to the north, like everything lines up.
And not only that, all that salt is if people play around with this on Google Earth, you can check the elevation by using your mouse. All the areas with all the most significant amounts of salt happen to be at the lowest elevations, which I think is corresponding evidence that seawater had settled and later evaporated there. And as you see here, you can see it rips through the entire Sahara. And if you look at their study that's showing the trans-Saharan seaway of 56 to 66 million years ago, it shows that the water blasted to the south, but it does not show it going west over the Richat. So I feel like there was some other event, something separate that happened. And I mean, yeah, these photos are spectacular.
The photos are spectacular, but could you zoom out again, please, Jamie? The thing that's crazy is how clearly it looks like water came over that and washed back.
Oh, it did.
Look at the left side of that image. It looks so clearly like massive amounts of water came over there and then pulled back. Like, look at the way it's eroded.
Do you want something that's going to blow your mind? So this area right here. Scroll in, Jamie, and you'll see, we discussed this last time as being water ripples. So remember when Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson were on your show a few years ago, and they were showing you the area of the Missoula floodplains in Montana and Washington.
West Bar, yeah.
Yeah.
God, look, it's so clear.
And so what's interesting is that, so I measured these, and there might be some of the slides in there. I'm not totally sure, but yeah, that's white salt. But these...
This is a wild
Pictures got great. Well, that's like it keeps
amazing?
going.
Taking some recent
It's
satellite
amazing.
photos.
God, it's
Yeah, from
amazing.
2023.
You can keep
Wow.
digging in like that.